Hey guys, this is Colin for Blackjack Apprenticeship, and I am back post bootcamp for a mailbag episode with, in no particular order, from my left to my right actually, Joe748, SD1, and Nichols. How are you guys doing, Joe748?
I'm good. I'm happy to be alive and scared to die.
SD1?
I ain't scared.
Against all odds, I'm still breathing.
Okay.
And still mad at the government. Absolutely. Always mad at the government.
So we just wrapped up boot camp. How was it for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it was really good. Boot camps are, I'll steal a line from Nichols, always highlight points in my year. New crop came through, and yeah, it was fun. It always is fun getting to see people that have worked hard on their games and want to take it to the next level, and see how much, how overwhelmed they are because of how much they learned in such a short amount of time. That's always really cool. And then, of course, hanging out with you guys.
And we don't need to elaborate on it, but had a really awesome special guest, a first timer, which was really fun. Something I'd been trying to get for a number of years. So that was awesome. It's like every boot camp is its own living or breathing experience because it's different people every time. And it is definitely one of the biggest highlights of being a part of BJA for me. Boot camps are where you actually meet the people that we're providing the services and resources for online. But also, I would not get an opportunity to meet such diverse people. I'm sure there's some other job where it's possible. But it's a highlight to meet people from around the country, sometimes around the world, people of different ages, backgrounds, careers, all that. And that's a blast for me.
Yeah, it was a good group. I always appreciate when we have an inquisitive group that asks a lot of good questions. And definitely this one had a lot of those. Like SD1 said, they're highlights of my year. I look forward to coming to them. And maybe it's just because I'm turning into an old man, but this one seemed to just fly by so fast. You blinked and it was over.
I got a lot of good laughs during my presentation and my jokes, so that's the metric that I use for the boot camp.
Absolutely.
But no, it was really cool at after the boot camp's over, we have a dinner and we get to talk more and hear more about everyone's story and everything. It just feels super good to genuinely see their reaction and be like, that was so awesome and helpful and useful. That's one of the highlights for me, is to see their reactions after it's all over.
There were some good questions this time. I'm blanking on the specific ones, but there were a couple times where I'm like, man, I don't know if I've been asked that before. I also got greeted by a hug by a stranger, which was a first. No, it was awesome. He was really excited because he's put in 1,300 hours and had 6 figures of profits, and he was excited to be at the boot camp to, meet the people that helped get him there. But it was like, do we know each other? Because you just hugged me. But yeah, it was a good group. Awesome. Well, we can jump into the questions. I was just kind of curious because we just got done with the boot camp and wanted to know, just hear you guys' thoughts about it. Let's jump into some of these questions, starting with someone asked a similar one at the boot camp. What percentage should an AP allow to grow of their profits versus how much should they be willing to pay themselves out of their profits? Is there a percentage, that you would allow? What do you guys think?
It's all individual. You can't just answer that because everybody has different life situations. Do you have dependents? Do you have a wife? Do you have a husband? What do your bills look like? What does your debt look like? What are you supporting? I had a job when I started and kept that JOB for a good while. So I didn't take a dime of my profits. I didn't take profit from my bankroll until I went full time. So that was a good 4+ years where I just kept growing my bankroll because I didn't have to. But that's not the answer for everybody. If you're living off of your bankroll, well, then you got to determine at what point or what hours or what metric are you going to take it. But then also, what are the ramifications of that in terms of when's your spread jumping up? Where's your ROR? Is there more value in you taking a little bit more financial pain to get your ROR down, and then deciding to take profits. So it's a multifaceted answer, I feel like.
My simplified answer is just take whatever you need to take out, but so long as your risk is the same as before you took it out, if you can do that. So maybe change your bet spread a little bit to keep it low.
Yeah, the problem with that is if you take the extreme example and say every session you win, you take those profits out, well, then your risk is going to skyrocket. You can't do that because then you have profits, you pull them out, then you have a loss, and now you've got to like downsize your betting potentially to get back to even. So I guess there's two things that I think of. One is ideally take out as little as you can afford to. One of the nice things about Advantage Play is it scales to a certain extent, not to like billions, but I was able to go from generating $7 an hour to a couple $100 an hour in 1 year by continually our team continually reinvesting our profits. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is like, yeah, you got to be careful. Your risk is going to skyrocket if every time you win, you're like, oh, great, now I'll pay the bills with this. Instead, I would advise to wait till you have won kind of a significant amount where, I don't know, I think I just want to play at least enough hours, maybe 100 hours or something, where, okay, after 100 hours, I've grown it from, 20K to 25K. I can take some of those profits out and my risk won't be higher, like you said. Joe, anything to add?
I don't have a whole lot to add. I don't think that much about this topic. I'm in a situation where I don't have dependents. I don't have a ton of like other financial obligations, and I live so far below my means that like it doesn't cross my mind really. So I just if I need to put some in the bank, I put some in the bank, but otherwise it's all just bankroll, and I don't really think about it any harder than that. I keep it pretty simple.
What are your big expenses?
I don't know, gas, car maintenance, Zen.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Zen's probably the most expensive thing.
Yeah. So you got your Zen budget, but other than that, reinvest. All right, next question, and this is from David Miners 7226. Hopefully David Miners not your real name. How do you avoid negative counts without getting heat? I try to avoid playing more than one hand when the true count turns negative with a small bankroll. Doing this has resulted in pit bosses breathing down my neck as soon as I'm up a couple units.
Sometimes what I'll do is I'll start off behind the table, not hovering over, but a few steps back, start it. And then if I notice that a pit boss is kind of like looking at me, then I'll walk over to the pit boss, ask him a random question about the casino, whatever, while still counting. Hopefully by that time it jumps to a true whatever, and then I'll be able to sit down and play. But I like to just interact a little bit more than just standing there waiting.
Yeah, I think the idea of sitting down at a table at a shuffle and saying like, just deal guys, and watching, I don't think is a good look. I think that really does stand out. You're better off, not sitting at the table. But he's saying he's getting heat by actually playing, but then when it turns negative, avoiding playing more than one hand. I mean, maybe you should use a one-hand spread the whole time if he's getting heat from. I personally like switching 1 to 2 spots, maximize. I don't feel like it's gotten me heat, but if I did feel like it was getting me heat, I would, if I got the bankroll for it, just always play 2 spots, or if I don't have the bankroll for it, always play 1 spot. Like, those are options to consider.
I mean, I think a lot of this just goes back to thinking about what gamblers do and how gamblers behave, and especially with wonging out. I mean, gamblers sit out of hands all the time, usually because, I just lost that last one, right? So if you can find some kind of justification, you don't have to explain it to them, just like do it in a way that looks natural. Just, pull the bet back. I'm sitting out this one.
But gamblers don't sit down at the table and say, deal,
right,
I'm not playing yet.
Right. Like Baccarat, they get a free hand, but Blackjack, they don't do that whole thing. So, and, wonging in, I like the approach Joe mentioned of shooting the shit with the pit boss or whatever and just sort of observing it and acting natural. And in my experience, like I haven't noticed that the heat tends to come from avoiding negatives. Like sometimes avoiding negatives even provides a little more comportment. Like I've heard stories of like, I think it was a Tommy Highland one where they didn't back him off because, well, we didn't get to evaluate him in a negative shoe. And it's like, well, yeah, they don't always, it's not always a rational thing. It's kind of unpredictable what a casino is going to be paranoid about that particular day. So I think just observe the gamblers and act like the gamblers.
Let's say your bankroll or budget can't afford, you can't play the negatives as much, so, and there's no other table to play, so you have to sit there and sit out. If you're going to do that, then I would, act really frustrated at a certain point and be like, and then kind of just say like, I'm just going to wait for the next shoe because this is a crazy shoe. This is insane. I can't keep.
What I think is even better than that is just step away from the table rather than sit, you don't see gamblers sitting there not playing often. I think if there's a couple hands left at a double deck or something, sit out, wait for but if it's going to be 5-10 minutes till the next shoe, I think you're better off saying like, I'll be back. And you could leave a couple red chips there and be like, hold my spot. I got to go to the bathroom, whatever, and come back rather than sit there for 10 minutes not playing.
Right. And some of the casinos even have like the self-serve beverage stations with like soda and stuff. Just get up, go grab a drink, walk around a little bit, come back right around the time they're going to shuffle. And that looks perfectly natural.
What if they have Pepsi products, Nichols?
Yeah, then don't patronize that place.
I'll also, Joe said it earlier, but like talk to the pit bosses. Interact with the pit bosses. Counters don't do it.
If your skill level permits that.
Right. Oh, I meant like when you're sitting out, like, or you're standing up. Like you
during
can even,
the shuffle.
You can even, yeah. And during the shuffle, you can also, like Colin said, like step away. Well, you could also stand up, stretch, bitch about how it's been going, and then talk to the pit boss. Ask them for something. Give them a task.
Yeah, there's one other thing in his question that stood out to me right at the end. He said, doing this has resulted in pit bosses breathing down my neck as soon as I'm up a couple units. There's something going on. If they're breathing down your neck when you're up a couple units, either this place is so sweaty, like you're just not going to get any time in, and it is what it is. Leave or play to the back off because they're just super sweaty, or maybe you're being a little sus with your act or your behavior. I'm not saying you are, but it would definitely stands out. If you're being up a couple units has them breathing down your necks, then I would be wondering about why.
I would be curious what the unit size is too, because like if they're breathing down your necks because you're up a couple units, maybe it's not because you're up, it's because, oh, you're betting $1,000 or whatever, or even $100 in a really small casino. Whereas like a $5 unit, yeah, they're just sweating everybody at that point.
Exactly. Like there's a reason I've never played slots of fun. It's because you're going to get heat betting. Well, I don't even know if they probably don't even have blackjack anymore. But back in the day, it was known that if you start betting green, you're going to get backed off. Like, okay, well, there's no betting advice I can give you that's going to help you at slots of fun.
I thought it was just because you got sick from the hot dogs.
Oh, I didn't get sick from it. It just was disgusting. Yeah. All right, moving on. Is the easy bust side bet beatable, given it is only offered when the dealer has a 4 through 6 up card?
Yeah, it's technically in a certain state is positive. Is it worth it, Nichols?
No, probably not.
Do you have any info on technically when it's positive?
Yeah, around a true 9 against a 5. And that's a little counterintuitive to some people because they think the 6 is the most likely to bust, but the 5's impacted more because the aces can make the 6 a soft 17. But, that's like true 9, though, that's like where the 5 crosses busting 50% of the time. And so even right at a true 9, that's like not even a 1% edge. And you have to think about how often are you going to be there and like what's the N0 of that bet. Like if you're aware of it, I guess go ahead and make the bet when it's positive, but I wouldn't really spend much time worrying about it.
This brings up a really good point too. So we often make the joke about high counts, dealer bust time, right? And we talk about that, and true 9s don't happen all that often. I don't know on the statistical curve like how often it happens, but like your higher counts, even a true 4 or 5, don't happen that often. So just remember, it seems intuitive to think in high counts, this is a good bet because the dealer is going to be busting more, but that's actually not the case. Your edge comes from primarily the aces and that you're going to get more paint in high counts. The dealer also is going to get more paint, but you make more on a blackjack. Yeah. That's where the edge comes from.
The simple math of a bet like this is going to be what's the frequency that you get that advantage, which is about 1/4% of the time you got a true 9 or higher. So you take that 0.25%, so 0.0025 times the amount that you bet. So whatever, the side bet amount is, times how much of an edge you have. And I don't know how much, I know it becomes greater than 50% that they bust, but like how much. So it's really hard to see that being worth your time when you do that math. Alrighty. Next question. Do you never take a player's card in your career? Or does it not matter if you have to show your ID when you enter anyway? This has been answered a lot, both at boot camps and on the floor. It is a tough thing to answer, but I'll just ask you guys. Do you never take players' cards? Do you ever take players' cards?
Under certain circumstances, I might. And I've probably played rated as a card counter more than some other card counters have. A lot of that just depends on like what information you have about that casino. And maybe that's because you know the people that work there. Maybe that's because you have a friend who's played there a whole lot and knows this information. Generally, like if I know they're not a database participant, then yeah, why not? Or if I know they don't flyer to the rest of the area, sure, why not? Or even if they are, but I know that their comp program is like particularly valuable relative to other ones for table games, I might. But I would say like the basic strategy, like that's a deviation, and the basic strategy play is to not give up your ID if you can avoid it.
The other part of that was the question about if you have to show your ID at the door. So this person is asking, they walked in and they were forced to ID. So if you're a younger player, unfortunately for you, this is going to happen way more often. And it's a tricky situation. Unfortunately, it's just one you have to deal with. And the answer is nuanced also. We've shared the little trick before that you can do where you come in, you show your ID, they say you're cool, and you go, oh crap, I forgot my wallet. I'll be right back. You walk out, you come back in. Your hope is that when surveillance rewinds the tape, they see the second entry and you not getting ID'd. That's not foolproof. So the other point is, just because you show your ID at the door, do they have you? Like, did they see the ID? Are they scanning the ID? One trick you can also use is using a passport. More and more big houses can scan passports. It's turning into something that does not work as much. Smaller casinos, though, they still don't really have that tech and they can't scan the passport. And then also, like, are the cameras seeing it from where they are? So showing your ID to the person, you can also try not giving it to the person when you walk in and just putting it right in front of their face. And like that shields the camera that is up and above behind the door guy or girl. And then they can just hopefully look at it because you just crammed it in their face. Even if you're young, I really strongly submit to you that you should try to act as if. Act like you own the place, that you're supposed to be there, that you're of age, walk through with confidence, give them a head nod, and see if it works. It will actually work more than you think, but it will not work all of the time.
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction if they scan ID versus ask for ID. I'm not worried about it at all when they ask for ID. This was happening a lot during COVID. For some reason, the casinos in Washington State, you go in and they'd like just look at the ID and then they let you in. And maybe it's because we were all wearing masks and so I don't know, but that never triggered anything. And I am pretty known as far as databases or even local casinos. It didn't translate to, getting into the casino or table time. Now, getting it scanned could trigger something, and that's where, there are some tricks you could try, but the other, what do you do? Back yourself off and like not play because they're going to scan ID. I still would say, well, if you have to scan ID to get in, I still wouldn't then just be like, well, they know who I am. Let me just tell them. Now, if it's not scanning, young people, they get asked at the table lots of times when you sit down, and that is really a different experience when they ask you right when you sit down than when you've been playing. All of a sudden, you got these big bets out, phones ringing, and then they're like, we need to see ID. And you just got to be able to tell the difference between these situations.
I played rated when my bankroll was small at the beginning to save on expenses because I didn't have a local, so I was traveling. In that circumstance, it kind of becomes, well, if I don't play rated and I pay for all these hotel rooms out of my own pocket, my risk of ruin is going up because my bankroll is so small. So there's certain calls where you have to make if it's going to be worth it or not. Otherwise, these days, it's sort of just if I'm forced to show an ID because of a CTR, couldn't get out of the shoe without it, then I'll do it. Otherwise, yeah, just try to avoid it as much as possible. But if you want your entire wardrobe to be branded in that casino, then yeah, you should get a player's card to go to the gift shop and spend all your points on that.
All right, from Hank Vran, hopefully not your real name. Is it optimal to calculate a bet spread after each session like MIT, or wait till you lose or win a certain percentage of your bankroll? Do you guys recalculate your betting unit or your bet spread after each session? And what he's referring to is there was one of the MIT teams, they would call in their results every night. They'd call them in to the manager who would, calculate, okay, here's where we're at now. So based on that, optimal betting is this new betting unit. Is that what you guys do? If yes or no, and why?
I think that's good to do. Again, if you have a really a micro-sized bankroll, one session could actually mean the difference between whether or not you could play tomorrow in the same way. Other than that, if you kind of have a bigger bankroll, then you're doing it less often. Maybe if you lose 30% of your bankroll or more, then resize. But there's also a certain point of professional play where you're hitting the table max a lot of the times anyway, and I don't know what you're getting out of recalculating all the time if you're always hitting that $500 max limit or whatever.
I don't do that personally, but that's also just a matter of not being around a lot of games that have big maxes. So it's not been that big of a concern. But again, early on, I agree with Joe that I think it makes sense to resize more frequently and recalculate more frequently. Even if you had or have access to a whole bunch of games with higher maximums, I don't know, it seems like that's a bit much to be doing every single session, recalculating and resizing. Maybe if you have one really catastrophic one, it would make sense. But generally speaking, it seems like being a little too anal about all of it, which I don't mean to be flippant about risk of ruin. It's a real thing that you should respect. But if you're playing to a 1% risk of ruin and you lose 2 max bets, you don't need to go resize, I don't think.
Yeah, you could resize after every hand of blackjack.
Yeah, you can. I mean, and the flip side too, optimally, that one part of the MIT team, they were also trying to get the most EV when they were up. So they were resizing their spread and making it bigger because they had just 1, 2. I never did that. I hit certain metrics. Well, as most of you know, is nearly 40% of my bankroll that I lost in the first 100 hours. Yes, in fact, I resized down. I waited till I got back up to break even and then got kicked for $8,000 the next shoe. And so I did not resize until I got I don't know, it ended up being, had a $50,000 bankroll. I waited till I was $5,000 above that. So I was around $55,000 before I went back up to my original spread. And then in terms of spreading bigger, I went kind of well over, I guess, the markers of where probably most people would have. Because my goal was to not only spread bigger with EV, but I wanted to simultaneously lower my starting ROR at the same time. So that meant building it up bigger. And that's just how I wanted to play it. So
my general advice is that it becomes emotionally exhausting if and even mentally, what's my betting unit this session? and having to worry about that rather than just knowing your bet spread for a little bit but even emotionally, it gets exhausting. If you're constantly like, oh, I'm up a little bit, I can bet a little more. I'm down a little bit. Oh, I got to bet a little bit less. I'd rather see someone wait till they're down about 20% and definitely resize if you're down 20% or more. And if you're winning, don't be too quick too, because then you could start betting more, have the same number of units that you lose, and you're down a bit, and it can feel kind of devastating. So wait till you're up a bit, get in some hours and some profits, and then consider, okay, now is it time to resize? I think every session would be emotionally and practically exhausting. And at the end of the day, like, man, if you're having 20% swings from every session, you're overbetting your bankroll anyway.
Yeah. Also, let's all remember the 100% factual, scientifically proven aspect of card counting. When you bring your spread up, you will get killed.
When you resize up, yeah.
Yeah, when you resize up, you will get killed.
And 90% of the time, if you split eights, you're going to get delta 5.
Yeah, 90%.
I mean, my anecdotal evidence is that 90% of the time that happens. Next question. Why don't your basic strategy charts match other ones I see online or at casinos? Is one better? What should I use? Well, obviously, don't use ours.
You should use the casinos.
No. Nichols, can you tackle this? Why our basic strategy charts might not match other ones they see online or at casinos?
Yeah, so the general idea is that Blackjack Apprenticeship is teaching you to be a card counter, and we anticipate that card counters are going to learn deviations from basic strategy. So we put those differences between hit 17 and stand 17 into the deviation charts. And so what that means for the basic strategy chart is that the basic strategy chart is just one chart, and it's meant for ease of use, easing you into learning the strategy, and you'll learn those rule differences later on. If you were going to just play basic strategy and you're not interested in counting, then yeah, I get a more game specific one. But if you're learning card counting, start with the one strategy chart, learn the counting system, and those differences will be clarified later when you learn playing deviations.
I'll add to that, because people have for years said Blackjack Apprenticeship is wrong, we have added to the basic strategy page on the public part of the site, not the member side, but the public side. We have an H17 basic strategy chart if you want it. We have an S17 basic strategy chart if you want it, and a European no-hole card basic strategy chart. You could go down the rabbit trail and we could have a single deck stand 17 and this single deck hit 17 and on and on and on. But the most efficient way, in our opinion, to become a card counter, which is what we're interested in, is to learn this kind of blended basic strategy as quickly as possible, learn how to count, and then learn the deviations, which are going to add a fairly significant 20 to 40% to your EV. You got to learn those. Don't go through the effort of learning different basic strategies and then learning different deviation charts. That's why hopefully that answers a question for you guys, and ours are trustworthy, but they're for card counters, not for gamblers. All right, next question. What is the funniest thing you've ever seen at a blackjack table? I'll start while you guys think about it. And I didn't see this in person, so this doesn't really count, but there was a video that went viral about 10 years ago of a guy in California that lost all of his chips, so he tried to buy in with weed. He placed a bag of weed on the table thinking that they were going to give him chips in exchange for his weed. And I could not believe it. I couldn't believe, like, what was he thinking? He had probably used some of that weed briefly before this, and so maybe he wasn't thinking clearly, but that's the funniest thing I could think of that I've ever seen that happened at a blackjack table.
Personally seeing, I would say it was at a casino. I was in a high limit room, and they weren't all that high limits, but it was a $50 min table, and he had splits and doubles, and he had no money. He had money in his pocket, but that money was a giant fat roll of $2 bills. And he rebought in for like 4 or 5 more bets with all $2 bills. Watching the dealer lay those out to count them, I asked the pit boss, I was like, can I take a picture of this, please? I should have asked. I should have just done it. And he was like, no, you can't. No pictures. I was dying laughing, and the dealer hated their lives.
Oh man, there's a few that come to mind. I'll go with this one. This was like 6 years ago, I think. And I'm playing this single deck game. I had the game heads up most of the night. And at one point in time, I don't know how old he was. I would guess in his 70s. He just comes moving towards the table and he yells out at the top of his lungs, "Living large!" and runs to the table and puts a $500 chip into a betting circle. And I was a little mortified because it's like a running D11 or something in a single deck. So I'm like, this guy's about to get killed. But no, I mean, there was still an ace left and he got it. and he didn't get blackjack. He had like ace 9 or something, and he wins that hand. And every hand he says the same thing, "Living large." So he plays those 2 hands. He wins both of them. Now he's got like 15. He's got 3 purple chips in front of him. And he starts playing the next deck, and he's still yelling it every hand. And he wins a double, and then he wins another one, and now he's got a nice little stack of purple. And then that deck gets shuffled. We play the next one, and he just loses every single one, still yelling, "Living large!" at the top of his lungs every single time. And once he runs out of money, he turns to his wife, who had finally found him, and goes, "That's what you call living large." And then he walks over to the pit boss and says, "Hey, I was playing pretty big. Could I get a room or something?" And she goes, Yeah. Can I see your player's card?" And he fishes for it, gives her the player's card. She goes into the pit, gets him a comp slip, comes back out, and he goes, "Oh, no, thanks. I'm going to stay in the RV," and walks out the door. It was like living in a fever dream. I don't know what was going on.
Okay, this is maybe cheating because it wasn't it was a teammate, but I think seeing my teammate Ben, who I ran the team with, dressed as Ed Thorpe with an MIT t-shirt, glasses where he wanted to be able to return the non-prescription glasses that he'd bought. So he left the sticker on one of the lenses that was like, for promotional use or whatever. He left the sticker on, and he's with the t-shirt tucked into his pants pulled up, betting table max, just to see what would happen. I think that was probably one of the funniest things that I've ever seen in a casino.
And you can see that.
Oh, that's right.
On the movie Holy Rollers.
That's right.
Streaming now.
It shows that. All right. Last question. What is the best book ever written on card counting? And we will take 21st Century Card Counting written by me off the table because that would be an awkward one to suggest. But I'd just like to hear from different people there what they think is the best or their favorite card counting book.
Mine was always, I think, just Stanford Wong's Professional Blackjack. It's not crazy long and super complicated, but it does have really useful, detailed index numbers and stuff like that. And also the practical side of, he talked about the practical side of counting too as well. And that was, I think it's just like the best blend of complex yet summarized in a really nice package together, like an all-around card counting book.
I've got to give 2 answers because I think there's 2 types of blackjack books. There's the ones that teach you the how-tos, and then there's the ones that are a really good story, but they maybe don't teach you a whole lot of charts or information or anything. As far as learning to play the game, I think Wong's Professional Blackjack probably would be my go-to as well. It's got the full index charts. It's and it covers both high-low and halves. And you'll get all the information you need out of it. And that's usually the one I recommend to people when they email us. Now, as far as like a book that's like a fun read and exciting and interesting, I really like Blackjack Autumn by Barry Meadow. He's very vulnerable about the struggles on the road and all the things that were going on in his life. It's sort of a unique thing where he's playing in all of these locations that most people have never heard of, and a lot of those casinos don't even exist anymore. And I might be a little bit biased because I've played in a lot of those same casinos, and I feel a little bit of an emotional attachment to some of the locations that he was in. But I think it's an excellent read.
SD1, you got any?
Yeah, I was going to make a joke about our favorite highly skilled.
Is this John Patrick?
John Patrick.
Oh my gosh!
But I was really worried making that joke because I was concerned that somebody might actually look it up and try to follow it.
You can look up John Patrick and have a laugh, but don't take it seriously.
I really like Blackjack Attack. Wong's book also really, really good. Blackjack Attack. Sorry, I don't have like just one. Playing blackjack as a business, like really good, and Beat the Dealers, obviously the GOAT. But yeah, I haven't read like a ton of them, just like when they get recommended. But those ones, I really enjoyed all of those.
I'll add to those a couple that I like. I mean, Professional Blackjack, like you guys said, I think is such a great reference. But I liked Burning the Tables in Las Vegas because of the psychological aspect, though I don't really recommend his cover strategy anymore. But I think it brings a different element where the game is not just the math, it's also the art. And he is very brilliant about how he thinks about that. And I like Repeat Until Rich by Josh Axelrad. The second half is about gambling addiction, and that's like really fascinating, and he's really vulnerable and honest about it. But it's really the first half. It documents the kind of, there can be so much fear around advantage play. And I just feel like fired up when I read that, not to be a dope in the casino and like try to be, because they were fearless, but they also really worked on their act and their ability to get in hours. But then when they got backed off, they didn't let that stop them. Then they like went to the next place or even back to the same place, with a good act and with a good way to try to get in the hours, but not letting the casinos beat them down. I think it's a fun read.
I also really enjoyed Andy Yule's book.
Yeah. Another, honorable mention, The Blackjack Life by Nathaniel Tilton. That's a fun one. That's just kind of like the life of it. And Radical Blackjack by Arnold Snyder. It's not going to like benefit you, cover to cover, but it's got some of the most fascinating little sections in it. Yeah, I'm glad that he gave that to the world. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. We will be back next month with another mailbag for you. And if you want to learn more about card counting, that's what we're all about, serving APs through Blackjack Apprenticeship. You can check out our membership and find out what we have as far as training, as far as betting software, casino database, results tracker, forum, members only podcasts, and more. And we will catch you guys next time.